Hey, what's going on, everyone? Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye, here today to talk about the Sony a7S and the a7S Mark II. And I really wanted to kind of give my review and reactions to it because I was able to use both of these cameras for a week-long charity event with Extra Life and the Children's Miracle Network Hospital down in Orlando, Florida. I was lucky enough to be able to get access to that. There were some celebrities there that you'll see throughout this video. I have some photos and a little bit of video showing high ISO, and that's a lot of the main points of these cameras and why people love them. And I just want to give my reaction to basically only using these for a week long. So let's just go over some of the specs of these cameras. I'll show you some video of it, and we'll see some of the quality, and I'll give you my reactions to this experience. So to start off with this video, I have used Sony cameras before, and obviously one of my most successful videos on this channel is my Sony a6000 first impressions unboxing and my actual review of the Sony a6000. I've used other Sony cameras before, but now I'm already going to upgrade to the 6300 because there's a lot of things to be said about the Sony line of cameras, and I've never really used in depth any of the Sony full frame cameras for stills, for video, to really experience the highest ISO of things. So this was a great experience and a great chance to just share everything. Primarily a Nikon shooter, using a Sony camera is way different. They're mirrorless cameras, they're a bit smaller, but the a7S and the a7S Mark II are unique because I've used the D700, which is a lower megapixel camera. It's 12 megapixels, and both of these are actually 12.2 megapixels. So you may think that the, low light, high ISO will be crap, and that's absolutely not the case. It's actually phenomenal. I'll show you that video with 10,000 to 12,800 ISO are very usable. Real quick, the Sony a7S, which you'll see pictures and video of me having, is 12.2 megapixels, the Bion ZX image processor, which is one of Sony's newer ones, 3-inch touchscreen. Works great. It's not fully articulate. You can just go up and down with it, which worked well if you were trying to use it on the go, because we didn't really have access to tripods when it was really busy, and there were a lot of things going on at this event because there were a lot of people there. So at times, it was great to just be able to have the 3 points of contact with the neck strap around to be able to hold them out and have the screen up. So it's not as obvious either. They do shoot 4K video at 20 and 30 frames per second. The A7S is 1080p at 60 frames, and I believe the a7S II was 1080p at 120 frames, so that's a little bit of the difference there. You had your ISO from 50 to 409,600 between both cameras, and as I said, we were able to use photos at 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 ISO, and video as well, where typically you'll have video that high and you're like, well, this looks grainy, this looks like shit, but in the environment that we had, they look pretty phenomenal. So check out some of these videos here. You'll see a little bit of videos of photos. You might see Steve Young in some of these, a Hall of Fame quarterback for the 49ers. And you'll see some video of just going around in these low light situations above 10,000 ISO and how clean it is. These are straight out of the camera, straight off of the sensors. No editing done whatsoever. No noise reduction or anything in camera. So these were actually very usable. I was very, very impressed with the way those turned out. And both of these cameras have S-Log 2 and S-Log 3 is obviously the newer one with the Mark II. So you were able to get more of a dynamic range out of those in editing because of it shooting flatter. You can pull a little bit more out. It's like shooting raw in, photography wise. Both have built-in Wi-Fi and are NFC compatible. The 5 frames a second is a little slow, so this is definitely not a sports camera or anything fast. So put that aside if you're kind of thinking about that as well for these cameras. A7S II, which I would say is phenomenal handheld because it has the 5-axis and body stabilization, so that worked out very well when we weren't able to use tripods or monopods. So mainly all Sony bodies really have a lot of the video features built into it. You do have your peaking, so that way you could check your focus. You have your zebras to see whatever's blown out in the highlights and the whites and everything. And it really just kind of works out well. The silent shutter works phenomenal on both cameras, the S and the S Mark II. So that was a cool thing to kind of like go in there and sneak things, so it will work very well for candid and street photography. It is absolutely silent. I would highly recommend checking that out. And an interesting mode that we've also used to to help out as well with some of the lenses that we use is that it uses a crop mode as well, and it worked out well. It didn't really affect the low light in any way. The Sony a7S goes for about $2,000 to $2,200, all depending on how you get it new. Used, you can find it for a little bit less, but the a7S Mark II, which is obviously the newer one, is about $2,800 to $3,000 US. So keep that in mind. I have two main things that would kind of prevent me from doing things. And it really kind of spans to all of the Sony cameras and what they still are not fixing. So we were not shooting mainly 4K with these cameras. We were shooting 1080p at 24 frames per second, which is your typical cinematic standard. And the battery life is horrible. I mean, we had maybe 9 batteries and they were chewing through. I mean, we wouldn't tape things for more than maybe 10 minutes at a time, but in under a 20 or 30 minute span, you'd go from 100% to almost 20%. The battery life is just not good on these cameras. So that is one thing to always keep in mind. Still side, it still kind of ran as well down, but obviously not as much. And that is mainly due to the small battery size and the constant use of the OLED viewfinder and the monitor or the tilt screen on the back always being in use. And that's obviously a huge perk that DSLRs have. Better battery capacities and more control over what you want to use, because using the viewfinder on a DSLR doesn't drain your battery. So if you can deal with having to use tons of batteries and keep swapping them out, then it's totally a thing for you. It's a phenomenally strong camera, and if you're not doing anything intensive, it's great. The other thing I will say is the peaking. We tried to adjust it as much as we could to fine tune it to be almost near perfect, but the peaking is just so random in a lot of these Sony cameras, especially with these. Sometimes it's actually hard to see how much in focus you are. Even if you are at f10 or f8, you know, you should be in focus, but even adjusting it and everything, sometimes the peaking is just too inaccurate. It just shows a lot more than what it is. So most of the time we got everything that we needed, but there were times where I'm like, well, this said that, you know, it had the lines around it, it was in peaking, it was in focus, and it was almost kind of soft at points. So it was almost a little inaccurate for my taste at times, but as I said, it can help, especially since a lot of these Sony cameras mainly are just autofocusing, reliable. Besides those 2 flaws, which really would prevent me from buying something like this for what I do as of right now, the 12 megapixels and the price point are not that bad for this full frame system. So the Sony a7S and the a7S Mark II did blow me away in regards to the high ISO and no light situations from where we were. Maybe a light glare came in, that's all we got. But the fact that I could make it very usable, as you saw from these clips right here, it absolutely blew me away. So it does give a major thumbs up for the low light capability of those cameras and a lot of the Sony lines that are out there. So if you're into the Sony line, if you want to get into it, I definitely say I recommend checking it out. So that was my experience with these cameras. I did enjoy my time with them. There's still some drawbacks that need to be addressed, and it's mainly the damn battery life. Sony, get with it. We were hoping with the a6300 that you were going to improve with it, and just to show some light of the future, but it's still a major drawback for me. I shouldn't have to have 4 or 5 batteries at an event, but overall, a phenomenal experience with these cameras. The low light capability literally blew my mind. Thanks so much for watching this video. Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye here. Any questions or comments about either of these cameras, please write those down below and maybe share your experiences about them. Have you owned them and sold them? Have you bought either one of these cameras and really are in love with it, or do you hate it? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a quick like, share this video, and as always, keep an eye out.